Welcome everyone to Zoom Into Books today. We have Dr. Raymond Keller, who is one of the foremost ufologists in the world. He has traveled over 40 countries, including China, in pursuit of esoteric knowledge and lecturing to groups about the UFO phenomenon and the planet Venus. Today, he will be discussing his newest book, Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy, which will be released later this month. Welcome, Dr. Keller, to Zoom Into Books.
Thank you, Kathy. It's always a pleasure to be on the program, Zoom Into Books, and to share this knowledge about the second planet from the sun in our solar system with all of our friends of Venus. Well, today I'm going to introduce you to the sixth book in the Venus Rising series, Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy. And I'm sure that this book will serve to answer many of the questions that you have had, you the readers of my Venus Rising series, about the planet Venus. And the first question that I received was, in your Venus books, frequent mention is made of reincarnation. So what does this esoteric subject have to do with the Venusians? Well, many souls on Earth and other planets in the solar system and beyond reincarnate on Venus after having reached the highest plateau of spiritual mastery in this density, preparatory to their transition into higher dimensions. It's very, very interesting because right now I'm working very closely with my friend Onek's secretary in Germany, Anja Schaefer, and we'll be possibly going on a tour of Europe and Germany in May of next year, but I'll have more on that later. But after several lifetimes on Venus, some souls return to the souls of lower degree in order to serve the inhabitants of these worlds as teachers or avatars of a cosmic gnosis essential for guiding their students in making their own transitions to Venus onward and upward as it is. Now, in previous Zoom Into Books, we've done finding your EQ, your extraterrestrial quotient, and I'll be doing a detailed presentation on that this month in Sedona, Arizona, at the Unity of Sedona Church. And that will be on this at 3 p.m. on Sunday, the 22nd of August. And then 3 days later, on the 26th through the 29th, I'll be up in Mount Shasta with the Hierarchy of Light Conference to discuss even more of the mysteries of Venus and UFO contacts, and introducing my sixth book. Now, what's really great about this book is that these are varied experiences of contactees from all around the world, not only with Venusians, but extraterrestrials from throughout our spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. So I'm not claiming to be the only one and the only one channel. And I've collected information over many, many years since writing about flying saucers and publishing articles in the 1960s. So all this information is coming forth in my Venus books, and you'll be able to read about Woodrow Derenberger, James Dean, not the singer, but the contactee from Hutchinson, Kansas, and many others, the foundations of APRO, Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, and so forth. But getting back to this question about the reincarnation, of course, many of brothers and sisters of Venus working here on Earth have been here before in prior incarnations. Essentially, they're attempting to awaken us to the reality of our own misguided thinking in so many avenues. They long ago succeeded in honing their intellects and setting aside their individual egos. Those that are incarnated here on earth are always to be found channeling their energies into service on behalf of others. Of course, they are interested in accomplishment, but not for themselves. They are always working for the betterment of all. Should one arrive at the point of being reincarnated on Venus, there's a hall of records there that can be freely accessed to reveal all previous incarnations in the denser realms. This hall of records, which some on Earth refer to as the Akashic records, has a machine that taps into a crystal ice cave beneath the windswept surface of the planet Uranus. There you can literally find out anything you want to know about any prior incarnation that you may have had. Of course, if you were to look at the Akashic records of another individual, you would have to have their permission to do that. So there are a few individuals who have bypassed the so-called wheel of life, and these are the ones who have been translated to Venus for their worthy deeds on Earth in behalf of their fellow beings. Annalise Guerin of American Falls, Idaho, was taken up bodily from Mount Shasta in California. She never experienced a physical death and went straight up to Venus. Now she looks like a beautiful teenager, and the key to this bodily translation is found in her 9 esoteric books. So I can't praise Annalise Guerin enough, and her books continue to constitute a marvelous work and clearly show a path to enlightenment. And we'll have a surprise at Headline Books, speaking of Annalise Guerin, coming up just shortly after the release of the Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy. And all I could tell you is that this is dealing with the high spiritual aspects of contacts with the Venusians and their message here on Earth. So keep checking this site, Headline Books, for information on the 7th book in the series, which will be coming out very soon. So I had another question. It says, you have frequently mentioned the concept of a state of happiness in many of your lectures. Can you elaborate on this from a Venusian perspective? Of course, but I want people attending my lectures and listening to me on these podcasts or radio programs to know that Venusians are a happy people. This is the type of happiness that should not be equated with emotionalism and the drama that accompanies it here on Earth. The Venusians possess an inner joy that comes from carrying out a well-done task. Everything the Venusians do carries an embedding of their own individual and collective life force. Suffice it to say, the Venusians have the utmost respect for everything and everybody. This is because they recognize the divine spark in all of us, in all of creation, and especially the sentient beings that they share the cosmos with, no matter where they are located. So what about fears? Are the Venusians afraid of death as we are? Well, the Venusians realize the material body is something akin to a garment. When it wears out, they know the time is fast approaching when they can simply exchange it for a new one. Having an assurance of reincarnation, there's no guesswork about an afterlife. It's no longer necessary for Venusians to fear death. They passed that stage of their cosmic evolution countless millennia ago. So as we are now, the Venusians once were, and as they are, we can attain to that kind of glory. Now, the Venusians have attained an awareness that when they move on to some other sphere of existence, they will be provided with a material body constituted of the elements of their new planetary environment. their body will be perfectly adapted to the physical conditions that they will find there in their new celestial home. And as to how many worlds there are out there, we know from the various Gnostic Gospels that Jesus, the Christ, explained that the inhabited omniverse was so vast that not even the angels were privy to the knowledge pertaining to the ends of it, if it even had any points of demarcation. The great esoteric teacher Helena Blavatsky also declared that the immensity of space was filled with intelligences. Now, the other question was, all these questions is interesting because they all have a spiritual underpinning to them. Is, do the space people worship God as we do, and do they have any religion? They do worship. They do not worship God per se as we understand it, but they do have a direct gnosis, a direct understanding and knowledge of God. They recognize that there is an infinite creator constituted of spirit that permeates the entire fabric of the cosmos. So what they're saying is exactly what it says in the Gospel of John, that God is a spirit, and those that worship that spirit worship in spirit and truth. So they see the divine spark of the infinite creator in everything and everybody, and there is no religion higher than truth. Manifesting kindness assures one's continual progress up the celestial ladder to cosmic perfection. There is no need for religious laws and ordinances when kindness is the prime motivator in life. And they do recognize Jesus Christ as the supreme manifestation on earth of God consciousness. They also highly esteem the Buddha, Muhammad, Rumi, and many other great spiritual teachers that have come to earth as avatars to lead us into the path of further illumination. So those are some of the questions asked to me at various conferences and meetings about Venusians. And this is information gained not only by myself, but also through the countless other contactees and their accounts, which are appropriately described and provided in the book, Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy. Okay.
Ray, I know that the new book that's coming out, Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy, you have quite a few very interesting chapters. And one of those chapters is new UFO Theologies. Would you like to can you give us a brief overview of that chapter?
Oh, yes. Well, various conferences have been held about the impact of the discovery of extraterrestrial life, or perhaps the answer to the UFO enigma, the impact that this will have on conventional religions. And I think the answer has been there all along. The Reverend Billy Graham, for example, in his book, Angels, God's Secret Messengers, on page 25, I think it was published in 1975, said that in his opinion, angels and aliens were one and the same thing. So we look in the Bible, in the pages of the Bible, we see various accounts of photisms or apparitions of beings of light and mysterious beings and occupants of craft coming down from the sky. In the book of Exodus, there's a pillar of fire by night and a cloudy pillar of light in the day. And of course, Ezekiel and the wheel within a wheel and the four supernatural beings that are described therein that Ezekiel saw by the river Chebar. And we do know from the Bible that we should always be kind to one another, for know ye not that ye entertain angels unawares. That's in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2. So there's a definite connection with our star family and the star people and contemporary religion. And I think this will all be made quite clear one of these days, hopefully soon, as UFO revelations continue to come forth. We'll see this connection between angels and aliens, that it's really quite real.
I've heard it said many times that the in the biological phenomenon are people describing what they see in the context of their world. So, you know, people in biblical times can only use words and from their experiences to describe what they see, particularly about the wheel within the wheel from Ezekiel. And as time goes on, I think that you have found, I know we have found in some of the UFO books that we have published, is that people around the world now see the same things. They describe the same experiences. Do you find that too?
Oh yes, I do find that to be true. And I look at this phenomena in one of the chapters in the Venus Legacy book, in so far as apperception goes about the UFO phenomena, is that how we interpret events is through our own experiences, through our own background, perhaps our own religion, our own avenue of education. And this greatly shapes what we see. And the best way to describe that would be you could have 5 blindfolded men or women, and they go out and they're standing next to an elephant, and one's grabbing an ear, one's grabbing a tail, one's grabbing a leg, and they all have a piece of the elephant, but they don't see the big the big picture. And of course, they're all in the UFO phenomena. They're all encountering this extraterrestrial or ultra-dimensional entity or object or experience, and so they're providing an account through the affective filter of their own background and experience, which I call apperception, and write about that in the first chapter of the Venus Legacy book. There's also a couple chapters in there with very firsthand information about the foundations of APRO, Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. When I was a youth, I was a member of that group. It was started in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin in 1952. And Dr. Leo Sprinkle who was a scientific consultant to APRO, wrote the introduction for my first book, Venus Rising, A Concise History of the Second Planet. But what's unique about the chapter on the foundations of APRO in the Venus Legacy book is that it details the relationship that Coral and Jim Lorenzen, the founders of APRO, had with the Air Force at that time in the early days of the UFO era, and also with George Adamski and the contactees. And the very same people that photographed Queen Orda and her posse at Mount Palomar on the 8th of August of 1954 at the Flying Saucer Convention were friends of Coral and Jim Lorenzen and representatives of APRO in Brazil as early as 1952. And they took a picture of flying saucer over Bahia de Tejuco. And I have the photos of the flying saucer and diagrams and their statements and so forth, and their connection with George Adamski is explained and everything. So it's pretty amazing book with lots of startling information and UFO revelations of their own that certainly rival, maybe outdo the revelations put forth by the government recently on the 25th of June that yes, flying saucers and UFOs are real, but we won't admit they have a real technology, but that they said they were not ready to admit that they come from outer space. Well, I am, and I have the testimony of many contactees and ufologists going back to the early days of the UFO phenomena in the flying saucers and the Venus legacy.
Well, you're right about the government. A lot of people are saying that it's they're doing this. It's kind of wag the dog, look over here, so you don't see what we're doing over here. Nobody knows that for sure, but you're right on with a lot of this stuff. I know a lot of people have paranormal experiences that are very reluctant to talk about them. I think it's wonderful that the ones who come forward are able to. There's another chapter in your book, and we don't want to give away everything because this is a great book, and this is book 6 in the Venus Rising series. But there's a chapter, I know you've done a lot of research on Gray Barker, and you might want to tell the viewers who Gray Barker is and talk about the lost interviews with John W. Dean.
Oh yes. This is a marvelous section because John W. Dean was from Hutchinson, Kansas, and he has a background as a teacher, an English teacher and so forth. So he's a good writer as well. And he had an ongoing correspondence with Gray Barker, and they did several interviews for the Saucerian press publications about his contact with beings from another solar system. And he describes many of the devices and advanced science that he found on board the mothership and on board the flying saucers, and also in visits to other planets. And it's interesting that these drawings and so forth are presented in the book, and these were done in the late 1950s. And many of the ideas that were published by John W. Dean and Gray Barker, it looks like they were borrowed by George Lucas in the creation of Star Wars, because we had a anti-gravity sled that scoots along over the surface, slightly above the surface, just like Luke Skywalker had, and then many of the devices on board the mothership, and the furniture that comes out of the walls and conforms to the person's contour of who's sitting in it. Just all kinds of really cool stuff about the ETs and life aboard the spaceships and on other planets. And also Right from here in West Virginia, I have the full Woody Derenberger story with many of the documents pertaining to Woody that have never been seen before, published for the first time. Woody's encounter with Indrid Cold, a being from Lanulos, the how the Lanulosians can travel through time, backwards and forwards in time, the account of his family, his wife, his daughter, his son, and their encounters with Indrid Cold and other extraterrestrials. Woody was also visited by NASA, and he provides an account there and tells us how NASA knows what's really going on with extraterrestrials. And he also met Venusians, and there's a section in there about his encounter with Venusians. It's really amazing. If you've never heard about Woody, you're going to be fascinated by his story. And it's he was from Mineral Wells, which is a small town right outside of Parkersburg, off of I-77. And fellow West Virginian, of course, another mountaineer, and one of the prime UFO contactees of the 1960s. You'll really enjoy his story, and the story is complete, has never been told before, and with information never before seen, including from one of the investigators of Woody, John A. Keller, the famous anomalist and paranormal researcher. So that's where you will find it, in Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy.
That's amazing, Ray. I wasn't familiar with that story until we got your manuscript. So for the people watching, there's 6 books in this series. Would you give us a brief overview, starting with Venus Rising, so they can, and for the people on Facebook, if you have questions for Dr. Keller, please type them in the comment section. We'll be happy to take your questions. And there are links to Dr. Keller's author page on the Amazon with all his titles. And you can also purchase his books on headlinebooks.com. And those links are posted too. But give us a brief overview of all 6 books and the focus of each one, briefly.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, Venus Rising, A Concise History of the Second Planet is the first book, and it looks at the planet Venus through the perspectives of history, theosophy, science, and ufology. The second book is entitled The Final Countdown: Rockets to Venus, and this includes much of the information about the early pioneering research into rocketry and investigation of the paranormal and the Venusian connection by scientists, psychics, and many others here on Earth. Contains information about Operation White Stork, the Russians' secret projects to discover intelligent life on other planets, as well as the Aztec crash in 1948 in New Mexico, Aztec, New Mexico. We all know about Roswell, but this has all the facts about the Aztec crash, including the construction company and the president of that construction company that hauled the saucer out from a shale company in Colorado and took it to Los Alamos laboratories for further testing and so forth. So you don't want to miss that book. The third one, Cosmic Ray's Excellent Venus Adventure, which is the one right in back of me on the picture there on my poster. is about my own personal experiences with the Venusians and the Queen of Outer Space, Lady Orda, otherwise known as Dolores Barrios in previous eras. Now, the fourth book is The Vast Venus Conspiracy, and this talks about the governments of the world and the space programs of the world, particularly of the United States with the Mariner probes, Magellan probes to Venus, and the Soviet Union, now Russia, with their Venera probes, the Japanese with the Akatsuki, and the European Union with its Venus Express, and the real facts about what they discovered under the thick cloud layer of Venus. So that is The Vast Venus Conspiracy. Also about Dr. J. Allen Hynek and working in Corrales, New Mexico with a secret program to map the moon map anomalies on the moon prior to sending up the Apollo astronauts. So amazing information there from the files of the late Otto Binder, this outer space writer with Ray Palmer's science and science fiction magazines. And then book number 5 is Lady Columba, Venus Revelations. This is the story of Annabelle Kreb, originally from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, who went out west, lived in Williams, Arizona, Joshua Tree in California, and was a secretary to Truman Bethlehem, one of the early contactees. And this is her own experiences with some of the same Venusians that were met by Truman Bethlehem. And she actually takes a voyage to the far side of the moon and writes all about her wonderful experiences and the technology and spirituality of the Venusians and other extraterrestrials in the Galactic Federation of Light. So yeah, please check out that book. And if you go to Amazon, you'll see a wonderful new editorial review from the Reader's Choice about Lady Columba, giving it 5 stars out of 5. So even if you don't believe her, it'll at least be entertaining and enlightening. And then stay tuned, of course, for book 6, which will be out any time now and can be pre-ordered on Headline Books or Amazon.
That's right. Ray, would you like to read an excerpt from Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy?
Oh yes, I would be very happy to. Okay, this was written by. This was a review of a presentation that I did on Venus to the Harrisburg Paranormal Search Group by the gentleman who ran the website there, but who's now the director, Tony Pugliese. And it says, greetings, lovers of the paranormal. This month at Search, we are pleased to have with us a special guest lecturer, the Cosmic Ray himself, Dr. Raymond Keller II, renowned author of the Venus Rising Trilogy, a series of nonfiction books chronicling the history of the planet Venus, and including mythology, fact, and everything in between. Hailing from nearby West Virginia, Dr. Keller has been a longtime investigator of the paranormal, especially anything related to UFOs and other form of extraterrestrial visitation. It's rare to have a veteran of the early years of UFO investigation here, and his presentation did not disappoint. It focused mostly on his third book entitled Cosmic Ray's Excellent Venus Adventure. The book chronicles Dr. Keller's own experiences with the extraterrestrials, including a purported contact between himself and several Venusians at a recent paranormal festival. It sounds quite bizarre, of course, but Cosmic Ray, ever the consummate investigator, has reams and reams of documentation and photographs from a wide variety of sources to back up his claims. During the presentation, we were given a good idea of the scope of extraterrestrial contact that we might be encountering here on Earth, including the apparent claims of a Canadian official that we are, in fact, being visited by around 80 species. Of course, it's impossible to verify these claims, but the preponderance of evidence that we are being visited by something or several somethings unearthly seems overwhelming. Dr. Keller also gave great insight into extraterrestrial technology that sent everyone in the room scrambling for their cell phones to Google the information he was giving us. This was truly an eye-opening presentation that makes us all long for the days of the flying saucer clubs of the 1950s and 60s, back when all of this was both recent national news and serious business. So that is from the introduction of the flying saucers and the Venus legacy, because frankly, that's what flying saucers and the Venus legacy is all about. About the accuracy and the truth of the knowledge that was revealed by the contactees in the 50s and 60s, including about the technology and the anti-gravity and everything else. And it's all brought up to date and presented for your approval in Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know that you have some rather large events coming up. Please tell us what's on your schedule.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, the 22nd of August, I will be in Sedona, Arizona at the Unity Church, and to be doing a very informative presentation on finding your extraterrestrial quotient and helping people establish their starseed connections. It's actually more of a workshop, like a hands-on workshop. And nobody will be disappointed. They're going to come away with tremendous knowledge and tremendous uplift, infusion of happiness, Venusian style. And then on the 26th through the 29th at Mount Shasta, on the slopes of Mount Shasta, I'll be at the Masonic Lodge there, and I will be doing presentations, 4 presentations, one on this new book, Flying Saucers and the Venus Legacy, one on the spiritual book that's coming out right after that. It's going to be a surprise that we're going to do our next Zoom into books on. And then I will do a presentation on the starseed connection, as well as the space people and why they are here. So I hope that if you happen to be out west, if you're, the one in Mount Shasta is all sold out, but I think you might be able to go on single days. But the whole 4-day program is sold out. But the one in Arizona, that's free. And it's going to be at 3 p.m. at the Unity Church in Sedona. So if you're in that area, call the Unity Church there and let them know that you'll be there. I don't know what the capacity is there, but I'll look forward to seeing you come out and meet me, the Cosmic Ray. I'll be happy to answer any questions and to entertain and enlighten you at any of these important flying saucer events.
And also, I'd like to let everyone know that Dr. Keller will be featured in the Headline Books booth at the Preston County Buckwheat Festival late in September in Kingwood, West Virginia. He will also be with us at the West Virginia Book Festival, the end of October in Charleston, West Virginia. And he's also going to make an appearance with us in Charlotte, North Carolina in November at the Southern Christmas Show. So if you'd like to meet Dr. Keller and get autographed books, you can check out the event schedule at headlinebooks.com. And Ray, I know that a lot of people like to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is to just write me at my email, rkeller with the number 1, just rkeller1 at mix.wvu.edu.
Alrighty, I will also post that link in the comments. And for those of you who might have joined us late, this video will be available on the Zoom into Books website or Facebook page, and it'll be out on our Zoom into Books YouTube channel in the coming weeks. And Dr. Keller's other videos are on there now, so if you haven't subscribed, please do. Raymond,
and all the Venus books are illustrated throughout. There's about 100 photos in each of these Venus books. So please check them out, and thank you all, dear friends of Venus, for your kind attention during this presentation. And thank you, Kathy, for having me on as the guest.
Thank you, Raymond, and we'll see you in just a few days talking about your ET commitment. Is that the right word?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.